A lot to talk about today. There's an expression that's become all too familiar in recent years. It's stick to sports. I hear it often when I start to stray. It's the standard response when athletes or journalists or talk show hosts stray from the game, and we dip our toes into the real world events. And this weekend, sticking to sports became almost impossible to do. Yet prominent athletes, former players, coaches, even leagues publicly addressing the systemic racism, the killing of George Floyd. Some drove halfway across the country to stand with protesters. Others took to social media to express their anger, their dismay, their concern. And you can question some people's motives or doubt their sincerity, but the message was really clear. We have to do better. Do better when it comes to racism. And it's a challenge for everyone. Athletes not only plan to be involved, but they plan to be leaders. The games are on a brief hiatus, but the men and women who compete at the highest level sent a loud message this weekend. This is a battle that they have no plans to sit out. And I'm not here to lecture. I'm not here to shout. I'm here to just talk. I've always felt this show is for everyone. It's for people who support law enforcement, for people who think George Floyd was murdered. It's for people who are outraged with the protesting, people who are outraged and are protesting, people who think looting and burning buildings is wrong. We're the home for all of these people. It's complicated. And it's okay if two people regarding multiple subjects have different opinions. People can support, you can support the police, but you can think what happened was wrong. You can support protesters, but you can say looting is wrong. And we can't ignore the fact that we're just five white guys discussing extremely sensitive issues regarding race. But we're here to listen, to learn, and respect the struggles and feelings of everyone who's been affected by this. And there were so many great things that were said, so many poignant things that were written. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar had an op-ed piece in the LA Times, and I have such profound respect for Kareem. He says, yes, protests often are used as an excuse for someone to take advantage, just as when fans celebrating a hometown sports team championship burn cars and destroy storefronts. I don't want to see stores looted or even buildings burn. But African Americans have been living in a burning building for many years, choking on the smoke as the flames burn closer and closer. Racism in America is like dust in the air. It seems invisible, even if you're choking on it, until you let the sun in. Then you see it's everywhere. As long as we keep shining that light, we have a chance of cleaning it wherever it lands. But we have to stay vigilant because it's always still in the air. Kareem goes on to finish his column in the LA Times. What I want is not a rush to judgment, but a rush to justice. I also thought that the mayor of Atlanta had a powerful, powerful message with her press conference, Keisha Lance Bottoms. I just want to take a portion of this, but she spoke to the heart of what this is all about as the mayor of a great city of Atlanta, but also as the mother of children.
When I saw the murder of George Floyd, I hurt like a mother would hurt. And on yesterday, when I heard there were rumors about violent protests in Atlanta, I did what a mother would do. I called my son and I said, "Where are you?" I said, "I cannot protect you, and black boys shouldn't be out today. So you're not going to out-concern me and out-care about where we are in America." I wear this each and every day, and I pray over my children each and every day. So what I see happening on the streets of Atlanta is not Atlanta. This is not a protest. This is not in the spirit of Martin Luther King Jr. This is chaos. A protest has purpose. When Dr. King was assassinated, we didn't do this to our city. So if you love this city that has had a legacy of black mayors and black police chiefs and people who care about this city, where more than 50% of the business owners in Metro Atlanta are minority business owners. If you care about this city, then go home and pray that somebody like Reverend Beasley will come and talk to you and give you some instructions on what a protest should look like and how you effectuate change in America.
That's the mayor of Atlanta, Keisha Lance Bottoms. Very, very powerful. Sports Illustrated's Michael Rosenberg had a column that he wrote on SI.com, and just at the very end, he says, many white people pick apart their methods instead of listening to their message. And please understand, every time you ask a black athlete to stick to sports, you're asking that athlete to be selfish. Spent quite a bit of time in the first hour talking about what happened over the weekend. We heard from a lot of people. The mayor of Atlanta, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Jalen Rose, a lot of voices there. But I think it's really important that there are voices from all colors. It's not just from the African-American community. I think for change, for progress, it has to come from everybody. And I was listening to Shannon Sharp talking about this, the Hall of Famer. He said, you can't say to Black America, hey, fix this problem because it wasn't our problem in the first place, but you're asking us to fix this. I think we, and collective we, have to fix this. I mentioned Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He wrote an op-ed piece for the LA Times, and I love what he was saying here. He said, yes, protests are often used as an excuse for some to take advantage, just as when fans celebrating a hometown sports team championship burn cars and destroy storefronts. I don't want to see stores looted or even buildings burned, but African Americans have been living in a burning building for many years, choking on the smoke as the flames burn closer and closer. Racism in America is like dust in the air. It seems invisible, even if you're choking on it, until you let the sun in. Then you see it everywhere. As long as we keep shining that light, we have a chance of cleaning it wherever it lands. But we have to stay vigilant because it's always still in the air. And then Kareem Abdul-Jabbar ends his column by saying, what I want to see is not a rush to judgment, but a rush to justice. I also mentioned this in the first hour. You know, this show is a place for everyone, or at least we hope it is. It's for support of law enforcement. It's support of George Floyd and that he was murdered. For people who are outraged and are protesting. It's for people who think looting and burning buildings is wrong. And hopefully this audience encompasses people who think this way, that we understand this. We may not agree on everything. You can support protesters and think looting is wrong. People can support the police and think what happened was wrong. And hopefully you felt that this is a place where we do exchange ideas. We do listen. And yes, I know we're 5 white guys here. We're trying to figure this out. We listen, we learn, we try to grow from it. And it's not easy. And certainly on a day like today, where you're trying to add to this. I don't want to grandstand. I don't want to preach as much as we've just been talking. And hopefully we make you think. We made you laugh today. Got one more hour to go. But it's not lost on us what happened in Minneapolis or these other cities around the country. And those voices. Jaylen Brown of the Celtics drove 15 hours to go to Atlanta for a peaceful protest. And there are a lot of peaceful protesting going on. Dale Murphy, the former Atlanta Brave great, tweeted out his son went to a peaceful protest, shot in the eye with a rubber bullet. There are people trying to do the right thing. But we all have to do the right thing. This isn't on the black community to, hey, fix your problem. It is systemic. It's centuries old. There is an expression that becomes all too familiar when these situations, moments arise. Stick to sports. I hear it all the time. And we try to do our best to do that because I know there are other options if you want to have the heavy news of the day. There are times when this can't be avoided because it is real. We are real. We're affected by these. We have friends who are affected by these. You know, the standard response when athletes or journalists, we stray from the game into real world events. And I was accused of weaponizing the coronavirus because I brought it up. And as I told you at the time, I'm not weaponizing, I'm personalizing just because of my situation and why it is so severe and so important. Anybody I come around, I almost have to do this background check because I can't get this. If I do get it, I can die. I'm not weaponizing it. I'm personalizing it. And that is what's happening now with a lot of these athletes. They're personalizing it. They're not weaponizing it. And I think when we say, oh, athletes stick to sports, well, then that's a selfish thing to do. Remember, Michael Jordan got criticized. Oh, he didn't want to take a stand. Tiger Woods doesn't want to take a stand. Then they take a stand, and then you say, hey, stick to golf. Stick to basketball. You know, this weekend sticking to sports was really impossible to do because you have athletes and former players and coaches, even leagues, publicly addressing, you know, the killing of George Floyd. And look, we can question some people's motives or doubt their sincerity, or if you're looting these businessmen, you know, that's just tragic, sorry, sad, horrible. You can protest. But we do have to do better. We do. And I love the fact these athletes are on the front lines. More should be on the front lines, and not just African American. You know, we don't have games now, but men and women who compete at the highest level send a loud message this weekend. And what happens is we move on so quickly in society. We'll move on from this. We moved on from, you know, these killings before. Where are we going to be in a month, 6 months, a year with this topic? That's what I want to know. What do we do? How do we do it? How do we remind? How do we get better? All of these things. And if you watch the show, you know that I love getting patches from firemen or policemen around the country because I know all of the great things you do. And because you have a bad police officer in Minneapolis doesn't mean that the police officer in Flint, Michigan is a bad person. We have bad people in all walks of life. And unfortunately, you had a bad police officer there right in front of us on video, spending almost 9 minutes with his knee on George Floyd's neck. And I watched it once. I made sure my kids watched it. When you hear him cry, he's dying. Hopefully we don't forget that sound because it may prevent somebody from going through that again. But don't forget George Floyd because we do move on at warp speed. Once we figured out Corona, once sports are back, we'll move on. Move on, though, and always remember. Keep an eye on the rearview mirror. Always. Have to. Because we're not getting any better. We're no different than the 60s. And I was really young at that time. I just remember the nightly news, cities were on fire, and I couldn't believe that was the United States. I was 12 years old, 11 years old. Couldn't understand it. Imagine being 11 years old now, 12 years old now, trying to understand it. Because you can't.